Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're going back to cover an unexpectedly great pay-per-view. I think this one's been unfairly forgotten. It's Vengeance 2005, and gotta tell you, this was a great time to be a wrestling fan.
This is so special. This is the beginning of the new era. This is the beginning of, I don't know that they ever really gave this era a proper name, but it's
No, they
it's
didn't.
the John Cena Batista era. Evolution is done. The Attitude Era is done. And this is really like the first pay-per-view after that transition, where it's just like, here it is. The top two guys, they're going to carry this now. They're in the main event together. Here we go. We're doing it.
Yeah. So we talked about how they made so many stars at WrestleMania 21. They made Batista, they made John Cena, they made Edge. They got all these guys over, and now they're riding the wave from that as they've just continued to build all those guys. And now we've entered a super exciting period. This is where they spent, rather than doing their draft over just one or two nights like they've always done otherwise, this is where they did the draft over the course of a month, and they had one pick on each show. And I can't express enough, I've talked about this many times, how I think that is clearly the best way to do this, to spread it out and create a good month of TV instead of just one or two nights.
It's astounding that they don't do that, because you'd always tune in. The appeal of the draft is that you just want to know how things are going to change. The idea in WWE, where things almost never seem to, is the idea that anything is going to change. So as long as they say they're going to be draft picks on a show, I'll sit through a 3-hour Raw just to find out who's moving somewhere. It would be very disappointing to do that and then find out that like Rene Dupree got moved. But still, it's a hook that you would imagine you would want to plant.
Yeah, and somehow, despite what I feel like this was hugely successful. I mean, I didn't really look up the ratings, but at least creatively, this created a bunch of like really memorable moments and excitement. I know I was tuning in to every show because I wanted to see who was going to get drafted.
Oh
They
God,
never
yeah.
did it this way again.
No, it's unfortunate, especially because it led up to the moment with Cena, which is one of the biggest pops in wrestling history. Just because that was such an unexpected and incredible thing, and the fact that that was the one thing that was going to happen on that show built to it and created such incredible anticipation for it. Like that's how you manufacture moments.
Yeah, so that's June 5th, where Cena is introduced as Chris Jericho's guest on the highlight reel. They just announced Jericho was going to have the first pick in the draft on his show, and I'm intrigued. I don't think we thought they were going to start with John Cena. Like,
No.
there was, I think, anticipation that they might swap Cena and Batista. I remember not being, like, incredibly shocked when Cena showed up, but I kind of thought, like, oh, those will be the last two picks, will be Cena and Batista.
Yeah, for them to do it first, and it's one of the most surprising things I've ever seen. I had no concept of the idea that they were going to do Cena and Batista. What I had heard and what was like the hot rumor at the time was that Triple H was going to SmackDown because after Batista
Yeah.
inevitably beat him, he had to move. He couldn't keep him on the same show. I don't think it was a widely spread thought that they were going to move Batista off of his show.
No. So Cena's promo was interrupted by Christian, who called him a poser. I feel like Christian had been ripping Cena for the couple weeks leading up to this anyway. So I think there was some anticipation that Christian might go to SmackDown to feud with Cena.
Yeah, they
Um,
plant the seeds of this like all the way back at like the Royal Rumble. Like,
yeah, where he has Tomko lay down a beat.
yeah, exactly.
Um, so Eric Bischoff booked Cena against Christian for Vengeance, and then the next week, Cena and Jericho were teamed up against Christian and Tomko, and Jericho turned on Cena, attacked him, and then got added to the match to make it a triple threat match. I mean, we've talked about this a few times, but what do you make of the decision to move Cena to Raw? Like, I think we have said before, we think it was probably a mistake to swap Cena and Batista here, and I think it hurt both of them.
I'll go one further. I think it was one of the stupidest decisions they could have possibly made. I think it almost completely destroyed what this era could have been. If they give up on Cena after the entire crowd abandons him at one point, like as they would have and had with pretty much everyone that had ever happened to before, then we're looking at two completely unsalvageable people by like 3 years from now. That sucks so much ass. Meanwhile, like Batista at this point is like riding so incredibly high on Raw. It just doesn't make sense to switch them. Especially during this is a period where you genuinely have different brand identities, like brand specific pay-per-views and Raw and just SmackDown. Believe it or not, there really were viewers who only watched one or the other, or
Yeah.
people who had just watched John Cena gestate from Vanilla Ice at a Halloween party all the way to this big star, and the same with Batista as a faceless enforcer, and now he's this guy. They watched them grow, and now you're going to swap them. So some of this new audience gets John Cena, and they're like, who the fuck is this rapper guy?
Well, yeah, the particular thing to remember is SmackDown's on UPN at this point. UPN is a network. Like, there's tons of people who don't have cable and can't watch Raw. So, like, maybe they see Raw if they're at a friend's house or something, but there's a big audience that only watches SmackDown. And, yeah, hasn't really seen Batista before this. And, there's definitely some people who only watch Raw. Like, I know I didn't watch SmackDown nearly as much in this era. Like, I kind of quit on SmackDown in 2004 when JBL was the champ. I think everybody can kind of understand and relate to that. So, I hadn't seen a ton of Cena's rise. Like, I had followed Batista's rise more because he was on Raw and I was watching Raw more frequently.
And I think that that's an underrated part about the backlash to Cena, is that Batista was so cool in such a different way. He was this like thinking man's monster, and like his feud was great. He killed it in all of these matches with Triple H. He's coming off of this incredible high with Evolution. He was our hand-picked guy. He was the future of Raw, right? He gets swapped out for John Cena after they take everything away from the John Cena character that made that character interesting. He's not rapping. He's not wearing throwback jerseys. All he's doing is doing a bad Rock impersonation. And that's what we're presented as the new top star of Raw. And like the backlash is immediate. Like it's in this match. He's only been on the show for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So something else that's going around this time. 2 weeks before this, WWE put on the first ECW One Night Stand, which was a massive success both creatively and commercially, and unfortunately led to the cursed return of ECW the year after this. But I guess it was kind of inevitable after how well this show went that they would try to bring ECW back.
I don't know what you mean by cursed. It did lead to the main event run of one Robert Lashley.
Yeah, fair. Huge Review's hero, Bobby Lashley.
And I might add, one of our best shows ever, December to Dismember, and one of my favorite Patreon shows where I attempted to rebook December to Dismember to make it a watchable show. I did not succeed.
But yeah, that first ECW One Night Stand was a triumph.
Oh,
I mean, honestly, the second one was great too. We reviewed that one. That was a great show in its own right. But like, yeah, the first one was a very true ECW reunion.
Yeah, it's very pure. It captures the essence of what it was. It was amazing. Having the WWE guys be like up there so you can antagonize them throughout the whole show was perfect. We're going to cover it at some point. It's kind of weird that we haven't, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great show. The ending where they have the huge brawl between the WWE guys and the ECW guys, and the ECW guys kick the shit out of them is epic. And then everybody gets to beat up Eric Bischoff. Like, great moment, great show. ECW should have just stayed buried. Or like, maybe you can do another reunion show or two, but like, this was such a great send-off for that brand.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that they just couldn't let well enough go. No. And now, in fairness, that's hardly the end for the ECW brand, because TNA does one of these several years later.
House of Hardcore still exists.
Yeah, Tommy Dreamer still milking that well until it runs dry, and it's been dry for years.
I mean, it's been a few years now, but they had that run where they brought in like Dreamer and the Dudleys, and was it Rhino to fight the Wyatt family a couple of years back?
Yeah, I think you're right.
That was a while. This is probably 5 years ago now. My timeline's a little fuzzy. But yeah, like, ECW just never goes away. And yeah, I mean that between the huge DVD sales and that show doing so well, I don't think there was any way they weren't going to try to bring back ECW as a show. But we've gotten into that on other podcasts.
Yeah.
On the main shows, a lot of major stars are switching brands. Raw gets Kurt Angle, Carlito, Big Show, and Rob Van Dam. SmackDown gets Chris Benoit, Randy Orton, Muhammad Hassan, and then after this pay-per-view, they get Christian and Batista, but they're both still on Raw at this point.
I remember thinking that Muhammad Hassan was going to be like a giant star on SmackDown.
He was. He was going to main event. I mean, probably not main event, but like he was going to get a main event run against Batista. He was going to get a match against him at SummerSlam, and then they had the unfortunately timed terrorist angle.
Yes, that poorly chosen piece of business.
Yeah, that's only a couple weeks after this.
Sheesh.
Yeah, like this guy is one of the hottest heels in wrestling and primed for a main event run, and he is done like 2 or 3 weeks after this. Like banned from ever appearing on television again.
That's so fucking crazy when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
Like he is out of the business from the moment that happened. He's like a producer in Hollywood now. Like he's done.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, glad it worked out for him, but like he got fucked over. Like he was a talented wrestler.
He's a talented wrestler. It wasn't a particularly well thought out gimmick, and their ideas for it were horrible. But like he made the shit work.
Yeah, like of all the issues with that, like his performance is not one of them.
Yes, absolutely.
So the main event tonight is going to be Batista defending the World Heavyweight Championship in a Hell in a Cell match against Triple H. We'll get to how they got there. Batista beat Triple H at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight title. They had a rematch at Backlash. He beat him again. Then Bischoff announced that there would be a tournament to crown the number one contender for the title. The Gold Rush tournament, I believe, because it was going to culminate in the winner getting a title shot in San Francisco.
I believe so, yeah.
That's right. I think it was at the Raw was at the Cow Palace. But hey, a tournament at the beginning of the summer. What if it had been King of the Ring? Wouldn't that have been great?
Isn't that weird that they don't just make this King of the Ring?
It
like
is.
I don't get it.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a couple of these throughout history too, where they just did some other tournament instead of King of the Ring.
Like if you're gonna have a tournament, you have your specific tournament. Like just do it, especially if it's one of the odd times where it might draw some money.
This was a very memorable tournament. I think the gimmick here was they didn't announce who was in it.
Oh,
I think I think each match was like a surprise, at least as I remember it. But like, so Triple H was eliminated in the first round after Chris Benoit tapped him out with the sharpshooter.
Awesome.
And then he kind of threw a fit and like said he was leaving Raw. Like he was just kind of like, "Fuck this, I'm out of here," because he's had so many losses at that point.
And then Batista was like, "Chuckle, chuckle, fuck you then."
Yeah. Also, notably in this tournament, the Shelton Benjamin Shawn Michaels match where Shelton springboards into Sweet Chin music.
Yeah, hey, remember the coolest spot you've ever seen in your entire life? Yeah, that's this.
Yeah. Edge won the tournament after beating Kane in the finals when Lita turned on Kane. There's a lot of backstory to this.
So much.
Let's back up. A year, I think?
I think so.
A year before this is when Kane becomes obsessed with Lita, and he wrestles Matt Hardy in a Till Death Do Us Part match, where if he wins, he gets to marry Lita.
That is correct, yes, because that's where I am in my Raw rewatch is 2004, and it's Vengeance 04 where that all kicks off.
I mean, that's how that works. You win a wrestling match, you get to marry the guy's girlfriend, right?
Yeah, you win another wrestling match, you get custody of their kid. I mean, you can create a whole family.
Yeah, so Lita is at first like the unwilling wife of
Okay, hold on.
Kane,
We got to back up a little
sex
bit further than
slave.
that. Real quick. There's also a part where Kane's threatening to like murder Matt Hardy, so Lita sleeps with him so that he won't. So then she gets pregnant. That's the
Yes.
base that starts this whole thing off. But
And
nobody's
then,
sure if it's Kane's baby or Matt's baby.
yeah, and then she has a miscarriage because of Snitsky.
Yes, Snitsky is feuding with Kane and shoves her to the ground and causes her to have a miscarriage, but
It
and say
wasn't
it
his
with me,
fault.
boys and girls, it wasn't his fault.
Snitsky.
His whole character's catchphrase is built around causing a miscarriage.
And then his character became he had a foot fetish.
This is where we're at, people.
There's some. The writers are working through some issues on the screen here. I don't remember who's writing Raw. Is this like Michael Hayes at this point?
I think it's still Brian
Brian
Gewirtz.
Gewirtz. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just want to like Brian down and be like, Brian, is everything okay at home?
Like
How are things?
this specific Kane thing. Because, okay, so basically, a rapist forces his rape victim to marry him due to a sporting event contract. She falls in love with him, has a miscarriage because she gets attacked trying to defend him, and then we're going to get to this next part. But I just want to focus that so securely in your mind. That's where we started.
Yeah, so Lita does like eventually, I don't know, Stockholm syndrome or something takes over, and like she actually seems to like Kane.
Yeah, that's the idea. Kane turns full babyface during this. I don't know. Based on the way the storyline is laid out, I think that was the plan. Is that he would abduct Lita like King Kong and she would fall for him.
It's not great.
It would be better if he hadn't actively raped her.
So the pairing of Edge and Lita is reflective of the fact that they have had an affair in real life. Like Lita and Matt Hardy have been together for several years at this point, but Matt got hurt, was at home. I think Matt and Lita and Edge had been traveling together at that point, and then Matt's not there. It's just Lita and Edge traveling. Edge is married, but him and Lita end up together. Um, and then they decide to make the storyline reality. But first, Matt gets fired from the company in April after he like refuses to stop talking about this situation publicly. Like he does a bunch of interviews, he has a blog, he posts some really like disturbing videos where he's like drunk and talking really weird. Unclear what was going on there.
Now, here's where we have to address the conspiracy theory portion of the podcast. Because it has been suggested that Matt Hardy goes into business for himself here to get over. I don't know how much I believe that necessarily. But like this is like his Brian Pillman moment.
That is very Pillman-ish. Versus how much is just he's angry. Like
I mean, he doesn't handle it
reacting
well.
in a human way. Yeah.
We
like,
know that the Hardys don't handle emotions well.
No, I mean this is not a good way to handle this. I think it would have been much better if he just kept his mouth shut. Like I feel really bad for Lita. I feel like she's collateral damage in all this.
Yeah, let's point this out. What Edge gets out of this is everything he's ever dreamed of. What Matt gets out of this is he had been spiraling into irrelevance. He may have gotten released in like a couple of years.
He gets another couple of years out of this.
Yeah. What Lita gets out of this is it utterly destroys her career and tarnishes her reputation forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's when there's a love triangle, it's always the woman who gets it in wrestling. Like
and people
we've seen it many times.
People take Matt Hardy's side so definitively, with such anger. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it in wrestling, because they decide that WWE has wronged him by releasing him, which really what it is he's committed several like HR violations and he needs to go.
Yeah. Like it sucks to get cheated on. Like, that's not cool, but not cool for him to air this in public. And like, they warned him. Like, they didn't fire him the first time, but he just wouldn't stop.
Yeah. And at a certain point, like, you're creating an unsafe work environment for Edge and Lita. Like, the
Yeah.
fans are going to try to kill them. You need to stop.
Which does make it a little dubious that they end up making it the storyline. Like,
yeah. See,
that
that's
clearly
the
makes
thing.
it worse.
That's where the conspiracy comes in, because gosh, it's convenient that in a couple of months they're gonna like make it the main event of SummerSlam.
Do you think this was like a Daniel Bryan situation where it was like a wink wink firing? Like, hey, we're gonna let you go, but like, don't sign any long-term deals anywhere. Like, we'll be giving you a call in a few months.
Okay, first of all, we have to mention that where he goes specifically is Ring of Honor. And this is during a time where Ring of Honor and WWE have a working agreement for to make it like a pipeline for talent. So it makes sense that that's the place where he would specifically go.
He doesn't go to TNA, even though he could get on national TV and like.
Oh, they would have thrown him $1 million in an open mic. Like,
Yeah.
That's no question about it. No, he goes to ROH, he wrestles 2 matches, and he stirs shit up on the internet, making this a much bigger storyline. This is maybe the first time that WWE begins to understand the power of the internet, because basically internet wrestling forums generate this in an era before Facebook and Twitter were really a factor, if they even existed. I don't think Twitter did. I'm sure it didn't.
No, there's no Twitter at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even think YouTube exists yet.
Yeah, in an era before it was easy to get this
I don't even know.
information out.
I remember Matt posting videos, and I have no idea like what format he used to post those.
I would just be
Was it
like
on
those
fucking MySpace or something.
fucking quick time, bro.
Yeah, this is just so weird. It's like the Brian Pillman thing, but like mixed with the Benoit Sullivan thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But as we've said, I think we both theorized that the Benoit Sullivan thing was originally going to be a Sullivan Pillman thing.
Exactly. So I think somebody's working that storyline. Somebody in the company goes and says to Matt, like, hey, I know you're angry, but this could make us a lot of money. It could make you a lot of money. So why don't you go down to the indies and stir up as much shit as you can? I mean, maybe it was Arn. Maybe it was Vince. Maybe it was JR. I don't know.
I mean, you could. But I mean, I think part of the reason they put them together was just like every time Lita's on screen, they're getting you. Like every time Lita or Edge are on screen, they're getting you screwed Matt chance. Like it's not going. Like they try to ignore it, but it's just not going away. And at a certain point, they're like, I think we just got to roll with this. Like it's never going to stop until we acknowledge it.
Well, here's the other thing that we have to acknowledge is that if you've ever seen Edge and Lita stand next to each other, I'm sure if they stood next to each other in an empty room by themselves without speaking, they still are generating the kind of raw sexual chemistry that leaps through the screen and smacks you in the face.
They are a perfect couple.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where, like, did you ever hear on, like, the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith that, like, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were having an affair, and then when Jennifer Aniston saw the movie, she was like, okay, what the fuck, something's up, because they have too good chemistry. Like, how is Edge's wife sitting at home watching the shows being like, yeah, he's definitely not still fucking her.
So Edge and Lita have a wedding on Raw on June 20th, which includes Matt Hardy's music interrupting the ceremony, which was a great wink to the fans, but he doesn't actually show up.
Yes, no, that's just though it's definitely, I remember the time being so shocked because it indicated that WWE understood what the fans wanted to see. And that's just, they hadn't done stuff like this before, where they're referencing what the internet is thinking and feeling about. And like, there hadn't been a really good way for them to test like the temperature of the internet. Like before Twitter and shit like that, like you actually had to be on forums to know what the internet community was talking about. And yes, I did do air quotes in my living room. But they knew what was up and they took advantage of it. And that was genuinely surprising.
And then the priest asks if anyone objects, and Kane bursts up through the mat. The priest exclaims, Jesus Christ. And then Kane tombstones the Priest. God, I love wrestling.
This is just one of those moments.
Kane tombstoned a Priest. You can't do that.
And like Edge is on the ramp looking so shocked, like, dude, you're tombstoning a Priest. You don't give a shit about that Priest.
So tonight, Kane will get his hands on Edge in a singles match. It becomes very weird when Matt actually does come back, and he has to be like, "Oh no, that whole like Lita Kane thing, that was just kayfabe. This is real life."
Yeah, like if you were a fan closely following the Kane Edge Lita love triangle, you would be very stunned to learn that like no, none of that shit actually matters.
Yeah,
he
Matt
was just being a surrogate.
like, in air quotes, his quote unquote wife Lita. It's really not a great promo. Like,
no,
I think he sinks as soon as he actually comes back, and they put the mic in his hand.
Because look, there are a lot of Matt Hardy fans out there. There are a lot of good things Matt Hardy has done in wrestling. Broken Matt Hardy was genuinely amazing and unlocked a piece of Matt Hardy that I didn't see before. But at this point, I think it's fair to say that he's just Matt Hardy. And that doesn't change because he's accidentally a part of a hot storyline. Like, everybody complained when SummerSlam came around and Edge beat him definitively. But at the end of the day, which one of these guys is going to be a main eventer?
Yeah, like, in hindsight, it's one of those things that, like, maybe it would have been nice for Matt to get the win there, but they knew the money was an Edge, and they were right.
They were so fucking right.
So they set up the Triple H Batista match after. So Edge won the Gold Rush tournament. He got the shot at Batista. He's already got the Money in the Bank briefcase, but he loses to Batista. But then Triple H shows up, beats up Batista with a sledgehammer, and challenges him to a Hell in a Cell match at Vengeance.
Now, my favorite part of that backstory is that a lot of it is based on the idea that after Evolution breaks up, Ric Flair is like a lost toy. Yeah. Like, he's torn between Batista and Triple H because he's Batista's mentor, but Triple H is his guy, and Batista has nothing but the fondness and respect for Ric Flair. So it almost kind of seems like Rick is going to turn babyface and be with Batista, but then he double crosses him.
Yeah. Nails him with a low blow, and then Triple H destroys him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because this card isn't loaded enough, we've also got Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, hey, you know that WrestleMania match that is either the greatest match of all time or an atrocity based on who you talk to? We're getting the rematch.
Yeah. So Kurt got drafted to Raw, and he beat up Triple H, and then Shawn Michaels came out and was like, hey, let's have a rematch at Vengeance. Like, you gotta love, like, the pay-per-view right in the middle of the draft where they've just got the all-star team.
Yeah, just like, well, we have literally the best possible roster to work with, so fuck it. Let's just throw the best imaginable matches onto this rant. This is a pretty stacked card.
Yeah.
As we're going to get to, all of these matches over-deliver. Every single one.
If you've not seen this show or you haven't watched it in a long time, like, go back and watch this. This show rocks.
This is probably the best like one brand show ever, and it's kind of cheating because it's not really one brand.
It's one of the best like B pay-per-views they've ever done. Like,
absolutely,
you can't compare. It's tough to compare like a Vengeance to a WrestleMania or even a SummerSlam, but like for a non-major pay-per-view, this is awesome. Like, if this had been WrestleMania, I don't think you would have been disappointed.
No, honestly, like, this is a better match than Batista and Triple H had at WrestleMania. We're obviously going to get into that, but like, better match than John Cena had at WrestleMania, better match than Michaels and Kurt had at WrestleMania. Yeah. Like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So the show goes down Sunday, June 26th, 2005. We're at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. The MGM Grand must just charge too much rent. Like, WWE never runs the MGM Grand.
Yeah, I've never really been able to figure out why that is. It's
such a classier building. It's right on the Strip. It's in the casino. I love that building.
I think part of it is, like, WWE won't run buildings that refuse to be, like, loyal to them. And I don't think the MGM Grand gives a shit about WWE's allegiance.
No, and my guess, because it's in a casino, my guess is it's a union building, and
Yeah,
Vince doesn't like to use union crews.
because he doesn't like to pay people.
Yeah. So that is probably the mystery there. It's also just like it was a WCW building. It feels like there was always some weirdness with the buildings that were exclusive to WCW.
Yeah, absolutely.
United Center's always been the same way. Like, yeah, it feels like there were some lingering bad feelings with a lot of those buildings. Love that AEW has picked up where WCW left off with the MGM Grand.
Just like every other way, it's picked up where WCW left off.
Yeah. Um, Crowd of about 10,000 on hand. Show does 420,000 buys, which is a strong number for a secondary pay-per-view at the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has both champions on the
Yeah.
show, so that's going to help a little bit.
It's got everything.
But WrestleMania and Backlash and this, the buy rates have all shown that people are interested in these two new champions. Like,
Yeah.
the interest is high for John Cena and Batista and to see what's going to happen. Like, that's a great sign.
It's just the first time we've had new like, Benoit and Guerrero were both veterans, and everybody could see they were placeholder champions. And then like JBL on SmackDown, Triple H has been champion forever on Raw. Like, this is the first time it was like, oh, these are the new top stars in a couple of years. We hadn't had that in a little while.
Not since The Rock and Triple H were coming up at the same time could you so clearly point to, like, oh, these are the two guys. These two. Let's watch them come up.
On commentary, the team of Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, and Jonathan Coachman. Don't dig Coach being the third wheel there.
Coach is the worst professional wrestling announcer who has ever opened his mouth with a headset on. I don't say that lightly. There's a lot of competition for that role. But there's just something about Coach for, like, everything that he says seems wrong.
It's just odious.
It's just inappropriate for the moment. It doesn't hit right. It doesn't jive with what anyone else is saying. He just never gets it right. Every time you hear his voice, you wish you weren't hearing it.
I can't ever remember enjoying him as a commentator. Like, I can't think of a good moment I feel like he ever had. And it's even worse when he's a heel.
Yeah, and I don't hate Coach. Heel Coach is a great character.
Manager!
Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, when he was, like, Eric Bischoff's lackey, he was such a slimy piece of shit that it was great. He briefly managed Garrison Cade, which, if it hadn't been Garrison Cade, may have worked.
Yeah. Like, they were just allergic to managers at this point.
Yes.
Like, it's hard being a color commentator. Not very many people have done it successfully.
The people who can do it are naturals. They literally just, like, put a headset on and they can do it. Like, your CM Punks of the world, right? Like, he didn't practice it. He just is that. You can't buy that, like, level of, like, just, like, quick off-the-cuff commenting. And, like, to be a play-by-play announcer, you have to be so unbelievably well prepared and able to just talk continuously. Jonathan Coachman is neither of those things. That doesn't shit on Jonathan Coachman. It just is what it is.
On Heat, the team of the Hurricane and Rosie successfully defended the World Tag Titles against the Heartthrobs, Antonio and Romeo. Cush, who the hell are the Heartthrobs?
Well, Steve, the Heartthrobs were a really bad tag team formed in...
That's all I can remember.
There was a period where they just started calling up random tag teams from developmental.
The Dicks?
Yes. The Dicks, them, the Basham brothers.
Remember when wasn't Damian Sandow one half of a tag team?
With Casey James, yes.
Yeah, and Michelle McCool was their manager?
That's correct, yes. Basically, they had all of these people who had been in developmental for ages. And they just were like, and Vince must have given some directive like, look, we don't have enough tag teams. Bring up more tag teams. And they just bring up like 10 shitty tag teams going nowhere. And they are all gone in a year. The Heartthrobs were especially terrible.
That's my only memory, is just them showing up and being like, these guys both look like jobbers.
As far as I'm aware, their last match ever was losing to the Voodoo Kin Mafia.
Oh.
Just so we're clear.
A fate worse than death.
Yes.
Oh. The opening package goes over Cena coming to Raw and Batista versus Triple H in the Hell in a Cell match. We cut into the arena, we get the opening pyro. Set is very Vegas themed. We got like big dice, we got a big roulette wheel. I say it every time, but I miss pay-per-views having real stages.
I miss that. There's this like a really great promo video they do coming into this. And like I just realized how much like that's missing from wrestling today to some extent. It's just visual drama leading you into the thing, like giving you the theme for the show. It's so important. I miss it.
The packages today do feel very same-ish.
Yeah. Like look, I know to some extent TNA kind of like destroyed this idea by like every single B-level crappy pay-per-view had to be like, welcome to a world where Samoa Joe wrestles Spike Dudley.
Yeah.
But like it adds, when you do it right, it can give these little shows that don't necessarily mean that much just so much more established theming. Like we remember some of these shows from this era distinctly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's just because, oh yeah, that's the show with that video.
Yeah.
That's the show with that match, and I got really hyped for it because of it.
There's so many shows from like, 1996 to about 2005 where I can like recite the video packages from memory. Like they're so memorable. Like we talk about them all the time, what our favorites are.
Oh god, yeah, like Austin and Rock at WrestleMania, and Michaels and Undertaker 2, and the one with Classy Freddie Blassie where he's like a dying old man.
Time.
The one at Survivor Series where Classy Freddie Blassie is rousing the troops to go and fight. Like
the SummerSlam one where it's like, if life were fair, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels would be best friends.
Yes.
But it's not.
The one at Armageddon with the 6-man Hell in a Cell is here.
You came to me in a dream last night. The Cactus Jack Hell in a Cell one where he's like, my nights are sleepless, but I still dream. He's like, you may say this is no dream. This is a nightmare, but it's my nightmare, and I decide when I wake up.
And another part of this is that if you have somebody who's not necessarily a great emotional promo, like Batista, for example, you can do like little tiny sound bites interspersed with all of this other stuff. And suddenly what he's saying sounds so much more important and resonant. He has a line in this video where he says just like, I realize that I'm going to have to go through pain and bleed. The difference is I just don't care. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah.
You can take a guy who's not the greatest promo, but anybody can deliver one line well.
There you go.
Like anybody can get one. They can hit one pitch, or you can give them 20 takes in the studio until they get it right.
And they have so much B-roll footage. Like this whole thing is just basically just random stock footage that they've accumulated over the years of like Batista standing in front of some lights, Batista posing, Batista winning a match. But like you spice it together and you put some music behind it and you give some quotes from the guys on the way in, and that's all you need to care about a match. 3 minutes. 3 minutes can make somebody care about a match that doesn't matter. Why has this gone by the wayside?
Opening match is for the Intercontinental Championship. We've got Carlito defending against Shelton Benjamin. Carlito was drafted to Raw on Monday and beat Shelton for the IC title in his debut match. Shelton's been stalled in the mid-card for about a year at this point.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
I know that
didn't work out.
A large part of it is just that they don't need him, right? Like they have their brand
better
new
options.
They have their brand new shiny top star. They have a lot of other people to push. They're pulling up a ton of talent right now. I guarantee you, if he comes along 3 years later, they push the shit out of Shelton Benjamin. Because it's not that he didn't have it. It's just that he needed a steady, continuous push to be protected, because he just didn't have the personality to get over on his own. And they just didn't have the time to dedicate to him.
They have a good, solid 10-minute match. A lot of good athletic exchanges here. These guys are two of the best athletes in the company.
Absolutely. Though
Carlito could do some freakish things in the ring. It gets kind of forgotten how graceful he was. He would just float.
Carlito doesn't give a shit about professional wrestling. Never worked particularly hard to keep in shape. But just somehow, it would just be like in random matches. Like the triple threat with him, John Morrison, and Shelton Benjamin. I'll always remember. Because in the middle of the match, he jumps off the top rope, bounces off the second rope, and does like a backflip somersault splash. And I was like, what the fuck kind of Sabu shit was that you landed perfectly?
Yeah. I hate to ever say somebody in wrestling doesn't work hard because it's a hard business, but it just seemed like he was so naturally gifted that at half speed he was good as most guys going full speed.
Yeah, he never wanted to be a wrestler. He just fell into it. And
obviously he comes from a wrestling family, and yeah.
I mean, we're not going to hate on him for that. We're all big supporters here of Get Your Money, Don't Be a Mar.
Credit to him.
The Lawcast line. It did torpedo him so much, this terrible, terrible, terrible character. And I know that people liked it at the time.
People love this gimmick.
Like, it's a good gimmick, but it's a bad character. There's nowhere for it to go from the moment it debuts.
It's cool.
The
whole game, he says he thinks things are cool, and he's cool.
He's handicapped by that. He's handicapped by the apple. He's handicapped by the music, which is the least exciting music ever.
Yeah, how are you supposed to pop for that? How are you supposed to get hyped for that?
That's the thing, is that like it's a good idea, and then you see it and you're like, oh no, this is not a main event gimmick. This is not a main event character. He's never gonna get anywhere with this.
It's kind of a lame version of Razor Ramon.
Yeah, so like he would have had to fight to get anywhere, and he just wasn't willing to.
Match ends. Carlito exposes the turnbuckle. Shelton goes for a stinger splash. Shelton ducks. Carlito ducks it. Shelton hits the exposed turnbuckle, and then Carlito rolls him up and grabs the trunks. It was a good opening match.
Yeah, I really liked it. Like, these two wrestled each other in some form or fashion, I feel like 100 times, and it was never bad.
It feels like one of these guys was Intercontinental Champion for 3 years after this.
This was a really great time for the IC title because there's so much young talent in this company. Yeah. And it just feels like they're constantly feuding over it. Like there's constantly people that are interesting and on their way up feuding for this belt.
Yeah. The only bummer is it doesn't seem like any of them ever became world champion.
That's the thing. I mean, a year before this, Randy Orton and Edge are fighting for it, so that's different.
That's a phenomenal time for it. And then a little later, you have Jeff Hardy and John Morrison.
Yeah, it's still kind of just these guys. It's Jeff Hardy. You just insert Jeff Hardy into this group.
We see Triple H and Flair arriving at the arena. Man, Triple H looks like a scumbag with his hair and his mustache. Jesus. So he's got the Harley race deal going.
He's still got the Harley race. And he's wearing, like... Triple H also has very bad taste in suits.
The really big suits, the huge collars, like, pulled up over the jacket.
It's some all-time scumbag stuff. He looks like a really scummy drug dealer in Miami in the 70s.
Just like, and for comparison, Ric Flair has such great style. Ric Flair has amazing suits, great ties, great accessories.
Every piece of clothing Ric Flair's ever worn looked better on him than it would have on probably anybody else. And for some reason, he doesn't have like the best body or anything. He just knows how to dress himself. Triple H does not.
I mean, Triple H is making a lot of money at this point. He can afford to get his stuff tailored. Like, Flair spent incredibly extravagantly on his wardrobe, like, unwisely so.
But here's the fascinating thing, is that when Flair goes with Triple H, that's when Triple H starts wearing the suits. So ostensibly Flair is going suit shopping with him, right? And, like, this is what's happening. And it's just
taking him like it's like he's his son and he's getting him his suit for the prom.
I love that idea so much. But, like, the idea that, like, Triple H is like, yeah, I'm going to go and get some badass suits. And then he just comes out of the dressing room wearing this, and you're like, and Rick's like, so it's just a taste issue then. I see. But
Next,
that's been one of like the weird through lines of the Lawcast history is Triple H doesn't know how to dress himself.
No, his suits today are pretty good.
Yeah, but he's clearly being dressed.
Yeah.
Like he's a corporate figure now.
Yeah. What do you think of Vince's fashion sense?
It's atrocious, but
It works for him.
In the way you would expect. Yeah, he wears power suits.
Yeah.
And he only wears power suits.
I love his ties. His ties are ridiculous, but I love them.
Yes.
They're just like ties I would never be bold enough to try.
There's no question that Vince McMahon has dressed himself every day of his life.
Next up, we've got Christy Hemme versus Victoria. This was set up when Victoria smashed a glass jar on the back of Christy's head. Victoria's got her dancing music, but she's a heel, so she doesn't dance during her entrance.
Yeah, see, it's slowed down now.
Oh.
So before it was like, I'm going with my bad self, Now it's, I'm going with my bad self, You see the difference? Now it's heelish.
Poor Victoria, this horrible gimmick.
Yes, there was a moment where she was literally the top star in the women's division. She was going to inherit it from Trish. And then they give her the dancing gimmick.
How do you think she got the dancing gimmick? Do you think they just had like an after party and she was cutting it up on the dance floor and they're like, oh, she can dance?
Well, there's nothing Vince likes more than a dancing gimmick.
Yeah.
But also
that's always been like, I've heard something as a warning to guys, like, don't let Vince find out you can dance, or that is all you will ever do.
I mean, I feel like she was like a dancer at some point. I don't know how true that actually is.
Was she originally one of the Godfather's hoes?
Yeah, but I think that was just her way.
That was just a setup. Like, I don't think she was actually, a stripper like the other ones were.
No. She was a professional bodybuilder. Like that is a whole different thing. I don't know, but for whatever reason, they just put her out there to like. It was rotten, and like the crowds turned on immediately.
Yeah, Victoria dominates. She goes for a moonsault, but Christy rolls out of the way. Christy hits a DDT. Victoria kicks at it too. Christy goes for a Hurricane Rana. Victoria sits down, grabs the ropes for the pin. At least they kept it short. It wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I always come away from these short women's matches from this era being a little like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Because I'm always expecting just full-on, like, Jackie Gata train wreck.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, Christy Hemme, I think this is her first professional match, first or second.
Was she on WrestleMania?
I think she was. I think that was her first, like, professional match.
Yeah.
This is not that bad. Like, she's hitting all of her spots. She shows decent fire. Like, she's in a no-win situation, but like this is fine. There is a moment where she goes to sunset flip Victoria and lands square on her neck, and she's pretty clearly concussed.
Yeah.
But despite that, like, it's inoffensive. Which, considering Christy Hemme is brand fucking new to wrestling, because she just won the Diva Search, I'll take it.
Then we go backstage where Todd Grisham interviews John Cena.
This is a haunted segment.
Cena says he's the new kid on the show. He asks Grisham if he was ever the new kid in school. Grisham says he was the coolest kid in school, and then he admits that he peed his pants in 10th grade, and everyone called him Todd Pissum. And then Cena says he was voted most likely to kick somebody's ass. This is such a low-rent version of, like, The Rock and Coach or The Rock and Kevin Kelly.
And here's the worst part, is that Brian Gewirtz is the one who wrote those segments for Rock.
John Cena's not The Rock.
That's the thing, is that Vince McMahon sees The Rock in him.
Oh.
And that's what Vince McMahon has wanted ever since The Rock left, is just The Rock again.
He's got the good looks, he's got the body, he's got a ton of charisma, but he's not The Rock. And The Rock stuff sounds lame when it comes out of somebody else's mouth.
The Rock stuff sounds lame when it comes out of The Rock's mouth.
It kind of does.
It was a product of its time, and that time has already passed here in 2005. It's so bad. There's one moment, like, right after he says, like, Todd piss him, where John Cena just does, like, a big side to look to the camera. It's maybe the corniest thing I've ever seen on television.
John Cena doesn't do subtle.
It's just bad. He looks bad. He's wearing a visor, and he's got, like, so much hair gel in his hair that it looks like it'd be, like, crackly to touch. And
I hate this John Cena.
this
Like,
is the worst.
this is the worst him, where he's stopped rapping, but he's still doing, like, the street talk accent.
Yes.
But he's just trying to do promos, but he doesn't really know how, and they don't know, like, the writers on Raw don't really seem to know how to write for him. Like, it's horrible.
They've taken his character from him, but they're still asking him to be exactly as charismatic
Does
as
he
before.
still have? I can't remember. Was he wearing a throwback jersey here, or does he have branded merchandise at this point?
No, he has the champ is here with the arrow pointing to his dick. Yeah.
God. Yeah, like, this is what this segment was missing, was, like, him wearing, like, a Larry Johnson or Anderson Hunt UNLV jersey.
It's just they took everything about him that made him special
Yeah.
and then presented him to a new audience and expected him to get over. And hey, guess what? You've seen that since. That's what they do to all the NXT talent they call up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, hey, here's a finished product that you don't understand and didn't watch develop. And we're going to take everything that makes them special and interesting, and you're going to cheer them, right? No. It sucks. No wonder everyone turned on him. We spent so many years on forums defending John Cena. Oh, he's not as bad as you say. Oh, he's not all that bad. No, he is. He's exactly as bad.
He improved a lot in a hurry, but he sucks at this point.
He's maybe at this point the lamest top guy in wrestling history.
It's bad. Like, you totally understand how everybody hates him.
And in comparison to Batista,
He's
who's like the
just so
coolest
cool.
motherfucker in the world.
Yeah, Batista with his suits and with his Armani suits and his sunglasses, and, like, he's cool, but he's intense, and he's smart, and he's suave. Like, that's awesome.
And he's
that's
got his
movie
entrance
starship.
now. He's got the music and the machine gun and the pyro.
Yeah.
Different universes, man. They blew it.
Next up, we've got Edge versus Kane. Kane spends the early part of the match just kicking Edge's ass. They go out to the floor. Kane goes to run Edge into the post, but Lita makes the save, and it's Kane who gets the post instead. Edge is in control for the next couple minutes. Kane makes his comeback, but Edge shuts it down with the Edge-O-Matic. Kane just keeps setting up. Kane hits a side slam. He goes to the top. Edge catches him with a beautiful drop kick as he's coming off. Edge sets up for the spear. Kane catches him with the big boot. Snitsky shows up. How in the fuck is this feud still going?
It never really stops. Snitsky's whole career just revolves around this. This whole storyline, from start to finish, lasts like 2.5 years. It's unfathomably long.
It's shocking this didn't end with Kane killing Snitsky.
I mean, it should have been. And just saying, like, it wasn't my fault.
I would have popped for that.
Yeah, just like back a cement truck over him. Wasn't my fault.
Kane knocks out Snitsky. Lita comes into the ring with a chair. Kane goozles her and chokes her out. Thankfully, JR, the face announcer, is being like, no, Kane, don't do that.
Yes, that's nice of him.
Yeah.
It's nice of him to suggest that murder isn't great.
Kane gets a chair. He goes to Pillmanize Lita's neck. It's very disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
Snitsky hits him with a big boot to cut that off. Edge makes a cover, but he only gets 2. There's even more interference. Edge accidentally hits Snitsky with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then Kane gets the choke slam on Edge. Not a bad match, but it was just a silly amount of interference.
2 things about this match. 1, I don't think we make enough of the fact that Edge and Kane are the same height.
Yeah.
Literally.
This is like one of my run-in things in wrestling is how short certain wrestlers we think of as big guys are, like some of them, and how huge certain guys are, like how Jake Roberts is only a couple, like an inch or two shorter than Andre the Giant, or like Drew McIntyre and The Undertaker are almost the same height. Like some guys we don't think of as big men are huge. And there's some guys like Kane who are like big guys, but they just like Kane, they exaggerated his height. Like they shot him from certain angles. They had him wear lifts in his boots. Like he's not that tall. He's probably like 6'5".
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I feel like if you met Edge, you would be stunned to find out that he's 6'5".
Yeah, he's a super tall guy, but he's never like he's always like he was never super like thick. We kind of perceive thickness as height in a way.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair. It's the same thing with like The Rock. You kind of academically understand that he's like 6'6", but you don't get it until you see him next to other people.
Yeah, and he's, an inch or two shorter than The Undertaker.
Yeah, he's like staring The Undertaker in his eyes.
I mean, remember like Dennis Rodman and how massively tall he was compared to Hogan and Lex Luger, and he was barely shorter than the Giant. And like Rodman's tall, but he wasn't an especially tall basketball player.
No, he's like 6'8". He was like undersized at power forward.
Yeah, and he's like looking the Giant right in the eye. I mean, the Giant is tall. He's probably 6'9", 6'10". Like, that's really tall, but like, he's not 7'2" or whatever they claimed he was.
Yeah, there are very few actual 7-footers in wrestling history.
No, I think the Great Khali is actually a 7-footer.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Giant Gonzalez is freakishly, insanely tall.
But it's almost impossible for someone that tall to actually put on enough body weight to be an effective professional wrestler. That's why I always thought we should have made a bigger deal about Khali, because he's actually 7 foot and he's also just fucking jacked.
Yeah, he's terrifying.
Yeah, human beings like that don't exist. That's not a thing.
Todd Grisham gets a word with Shawn Michaels backstage. Shawn says after WrestleMania, he prayed for a rematch against Kurt Angle, and his prayers have been answered because of the draft lottery. He said him and Angle had the greatest match of all time at WrestleMania 21. His whole life has been people have been asking him if he can follow his last match. He says he doesn't know if he can, but tonight vengeance will be his.
Intense Kurt. This is Is this the last great Kurt Angle before it goes wrong?
I mean, he has the really bad. I think he gets hurt in this match, or he's just dealing with some stuff. Because after this, they put him in a feud with Eugene for the next couple months.
And he has that wretched feud with Cena.
A horrible run against Cena. And then he becomes really like, he has the amazing match with The Undertaker the year after this, before WrestleMania.
That's true. That's pretty much his
And then
last
he's done after that. Like, he's only around a couple months after that, and he's dealing with injuries and pilled up the whole time.
Yeah, on our next podcast, we're going to talk a lot about why he's where he is at this point, but that's for another time.
Yeah, so the story here, Kurt is obsessed with beating Shawn by submission. He tapped him out at WrestleMania. He wants to be the first person to ever tap Shawn out twice.
That's what this match needed.
Yeah.
You and I have always been critics of the WrestleMania match. We don't hate it. Yeah, but there are people who genuinely believe it, or said at the time that it was the best match of all time. That's a fucking joke.
Better than Edge versus Randy Orton?
I mean, nothing's better than the best of all time.
That match, we're recording this before. I don't know when that match is going to happen, but like we're recording this before that match has happened.
Yeah, I think it happens this Sunday, actually.
Okay, well, yeah, this show will not drop until after the show has happened, so maybe we'll look like idiots, and that will actually be an 18-star match.
Yeah, if Edge versus Randy Orton is the greatest match of all time, we will retroactively go back in and put in a little bit right here where we say we're sorry for being wrong. So let's hold on for a second. Okay, that's where it'll go.
So yeah, Shawn is just trying to beat Kurt by any means he can. Kurt is kind of handicapping himself because he only wants to win by submission. I don't know if he attempts a pinfall this entire match.
And again, the problem with the WrestleMania match is that while it's a beautiful display of just two athletes just going, there's no psychology to it whatsoever. Like, nothing has
seem
any
like they're
rhyme.
trying to win. They're just doing stuff.
Yeah, they set out to have an epic match, and that's what they do. But it doesn't make sense as a wrestling match.
I think it is a match that changed wrestling. Like, the modern great quote-unquote WWE match is based on that match with all the finishers and all the kickouts and all the huge moves. Like, that's the model of a great match.
Which is a shame, because the Undertaker Shawn Michaels match is what the model should be, because it has a soul to it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
And a lot more selling, a lot more psychology. They have finisher kickouts, but they don't abuse them in the same way.
This isn't our attempt to be like old men sitting in our rocking chair, like belaboring the current state of the business. It's just, the match could have been better, and this is where it gets better.
This love
is the better
match.
version. This match rules.
Yeah, this is totally forgotten, but I absolutely love this match.
This match kicks ass.
They exchange a bunch of holds and takedowns early in the match. Shawn goes for a sunset flip from the top. Kurt rolls through it. He goes for the ankle lock, but Shawn blocks it. Kurt gets control. He wears Shawn's back down. Shawn fights Kurt on the top rope. He comes off with an axe handle, but Kurt catches him and hits a belly-to-belly suplex. Shawn makes his comeback. He hits the elbow drop. He sets up for sweet chin music, but Kurt drills him with a big clothesline. Shawn goes for a suplex. Kurt drops out of it, hits the rolling German suplexes, and then Kurt gets the ankle lock on. Shawn manages to roll through it. The ref gets bumped. Shawn charges Kurt, and Kurt backdrops him over the top rope.
Yeah.
Kurt gets Shawn in the ankle lock again. Shawn almost kicks his way out, but Angle holds on. Shawn manages to roll through it. He throws Kurt into the ring post. Kurt stalks Shawn, but as he's coming in, Shawn nails him with sweet chin music. Shawn is out. He's delayed on covering. When he finally does, he can only get an arm over him, and Kurt gets his shoulder up. Kurt goes to the top. He comes off. He gets caught with sweet chin music, and that's enough to get the pin. Shawn gets his revenge. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Like, just the simple psychology of Shawn is trying to win by any means, and Kurt only wants to win by submission, and that's how Shawn is able to beat him. Makes all the sense in the world.
There is one flaw in this match, and only one.
Yeah.
And that flaw is that at the very end, the way that he wins is Kurt Angle tries to jump off the top rope and do like a double axe handle.
It's a contrived finish.
Yeah, like this works in like Ric Flair matches, but like it rings false because Kurt Angle has never done that in his entire career.
No, if Kurt goes to the top rope, he's going for a moonsault on a downed opponent. Like, he doesn't do axe handles off the top rope.
And that's not like the biggest deal in the world, but like it kind of detracts from the fin. That's why Ric Flair baked that spot into every match, so that when it was important, it would work. You know what I mean? Here, it's manufactured. It's fine. I'm not complaining. It's just meh. But the match, holy shit, the match.
Shawn limps to the back, and Kurt is helped out by officials. Then Coach is backstage with Batista. Coach says if not for bad officiating at Backlash, Triple H would be the World Heavyweight Champion right now. He says Batista looks scared. Batista says he's not afraid of anything, including Triple H and including the Hell in a Cell. He says tonight is for every time Triple H stabbed him in the back, every time he hit him with the sledgehammer. He says Triple H is going to have to kill him if he wants to take the title from him. He says him and Triple H are going to hell, but only he's going to walk out of hell. And then Triple H shows up. He says even if he walks out tonight, it won't be as the world champion. And then they get into it and have to be separated.
This is a good promo.
Yeah, I was fired up. I love the I'll go into hell and I'm walking out with my title.
Batista had this way where, like, he wouldn't say a lot, and he wouldn't say it very emotionally, but it would just get you charged up and interested. Like, you'd just be hanging on his every word, and that's how it was here, where it's just
He's
like,
just
man.
Natural performer.
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's a reason he broke into acting and hit it big so fast.
Like, we should have seen that coming more than we did, because he just has this very understated way of drawing your attention.
Which, there's not a lot of subtlety in wrestling.
Yes.
He's one of the few people you can say was really good subtly.
Oh, yeah.
Then we have a very strange segment. There's a couch in the ring, and Lillian Garcia comes out. She's then joined by the world's largest love machine, Viscera.
Okay, if you guys are sitting at home, there's a good chance that you don't remember the minutia of individual segments on Vengeance 2005. So I want you to just take a second and imagine what you think is about to happen. Okay? Just imagine in your head, there's a couch in the ring, Lillian, Viscera. Okay, please proceed.
They've been dating the last few months. Viscera is wearing like a smoking jacket, basically.
Yeah.
This is his gimmick. He wrestles in pajamas now.
Sure.
Lillian proceeds to sing a song to him, professing her love.
A full-length song.
Yeah. She then asks him if he will marry her.
And he says...
he hems and haws. He's kind of like, well, I guess I'll have to think about that.
Until he is saved by the bell.
If only there was one man who could fix this situation just with the sound of his music.
A man for whom matrimony is the dirtiest word of all. And here comes the Godfather.
Hasn't been seen in WWE for a little while at this point, but whenever they were in Vegas, he would show up.
It's just the fucking Godfather.
He warns Vis about the perils of marriage and gives him a choice. He can either have Lillian or he can have the hose.
And he chooses the hose.
He does, in fact, choose the hose. That is, in fact, what happens here.
Let me just say, they waste TV time on this Lillian Viscera thing for months.
Goes nowhere. Just feels like a rib on Lillian.
Yeah, just for this segment.
I mean, everything was always a rib on Lillian. Like, for whatever reason, people backstage just loved fucking with her.
Also, I don't know if the wrestlers backstage were just super horny for Lillian, but the desire to fuck Lillian comes up on television often.
I mean, she's a beautiful woman.
I mean, she certainly is, but it's not like The Rock is cutting promos. I suspect
it's because she didn't date any of the wrestlers.
That's probably what it is. You're right.
Yeah.
It's just funny that it's not like Trish was in The Rock's promos and The Rock would be like, "Hey, you want to fuck me?" Every single night.
Next up, we've got our WWE Championship triple threat match as John Cena defends against Christian and Chris Jericho. Jericho is out first. JR mentions that at the very first Vengeance pay-per-view in 2001, Jericho beat both The Rock and Steve Austin in the same night to become the undisputed World Heavyweight Champion. Christian is out next. Christian has arrived. He's got it all here. He's got the, it's not Evanescence music, it's some knockoff, but it's Waterproof Blonde, I think. But he's got the Just Close Your Eyes song. He's got the awesome Captain Charisma outfit with the hood. He's got Tomko backing him up. He's bulked up, gotten in better shape. He's not wearing a singlet. He's cut his hair. Christian's the man at this point.
But for some reason, Vince doesn't see it.
Did you notice how much taller Christian is than Jericho?
Definitively taller, yes.
I think of Christian as being short. Christian is a solid 2 inches taller than Jericho.
He's the same height as Cena.
Yeah, like I think Christian's actually like 6'2", and he just seems short. I think he's got really long legs and really like skinny legs.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
there's no reward at this point in WWE history for getting over on your own.
No. And he has gotten himself over just by being super cool.
And like it's almost held against him.
Yeah.
Like the fans push him into this role and Vince seems to resent it.
Yeah. He's out of the company in 6 months, right?
Yeah, because they give him no chances, so he's like, "Fuck it, I'll go to TNA and prove to you I'm a star."
Yeah,
And
they
that's
try
exactly.
to they try to bully him into signing a contract like right as he's walking out for a match, and he's like, "No, like I want to look at it and think about it." And no, he ends up leaving for TNA.
Yeah, this is the point where they don't think that TNA is a viable option, and until he goes there, it's not.
Yeah.
It's him going there that makes it a viable option. WWE swings and misses hard on Christian here because they could have genuinely had something. If they keep Cena on SmackDown and move Christian there too, and that's the feud, that's money.
Sounds awesome. Cena's out last. I can never tell if I'm imagining boos for him in this era just because I'm so used to hearing it. Seemed like he got a nice pop, but not that big.
No. We're at the point where
It's tepid. It's thin ice.
Vice, who used to do Kyushu Reviews with us, once created a video that was literally like he played around with sound leveling. So like anything pitched above a certain point, so basically like women and children's voices, would show and not the other ones. And it was John Cena's entrance.
Yeah.
So
Very
like
high-pitched.
yeah, the high pitched stuff was huge. It sounded like a hero had just walked in the room. But when you took that away, it was basically silence.
Wow.
And like that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
Is that the smart fans haven't started booing him
No.
yet,
But
they're
they're
not
just kind of
cheering.
they're kind of golf clapping.
Yeah, it's like all right, yeah, this guy.
Yeah. It feels like everybody like people are like they're skeptical, but nobody's really saying it yet. Everybody's kind of looking at each other, being like, "Wait, doesn't this guy kind of suck?"
Yeah. And again, like he's giving such a horrible first impression. And I don't want to say that like women and children are exactly who you should be pushing this product towards. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the smart fans
And
were like right.
oh yeah, that's what I hate is the idea that like those fans don't matter. Like
Yeah, fuck that.
that's wrong.
In fact, like John, they realize that's why they keep pushing him throughout it. Is that his merchandise is still selling like fucking hotcakes while everyone else is booing him. So it just doesn't
Like,
matter. that
women in
smart fans don't like him.
particular are like a growth market. Like
Oh my
clearly there's a bunch of potential fans there they haven't reached and have never really been able to.
That's basically what's sustaining them now. Is like the women that they brought in with the women's revolution, and all of a sudden they have female fans. If they hadn't done that, God, who would even be watching the show?
Yeah. So Christian and Jericho initially team up against Cena, but then Jericho decks Christian. Tomko interferes and he gets tossed out. He is ejected from ringside. Cena hits Christian with the FU over the top to the floor. That was a rough bump. Like he didn't come down on his feet. Like he back bumped here.
Anytime I see somebody take a back bump over the top rope, that's basically the same bump as taking a bump off a ladder. Like it's the same height. So like that's fucking rough.
So this sets up a one-on-one situation between Cena and Jericho. Jericho misses the lion salt, but he lands on his feet. He knocks Cena to the floor and then clears off the announce table. Cena blocks a suplex attempt and DDTs Jericho on the title belt. Jericho is out, but Christian is recovered, so now we get a Christian versus Cena segment. Cena makes a comeback. He goes for the five-knuckle shuffle, but Jericho trips him up. Jericho slams Cena into the steps, so now Cena is out, and we've got a Christian versus Jericho segment. It is a little contrived, but that's just kind of how you do. That's just how you do triple threat matches in WWE.
Yeah, but this is my least favorite kind of triple threat matches. Like, there's really almost zero time in this match where all three people are in the same ring. And I think it's just because, to be honest, I don't think John Cena could have done a triple threat match any other way. Like, I'm not sure that they trusted him to be able to direct traffic.
Yeah. That is probably fair, and they're probably right.
Yeah.
Cena makes a comeback. He goes for the five-knuckle shuffle. Jericho trips him. Oh, I just said that. We've got Christian versus Jericho. Christian blocks the walls of Jericho. He gets Jericho in a small package for a 2 count. They break out the Tower of Doom here, and the crowd really pops for this.
That's still fresh.
Yeah.
At least in WWE it is.
Cena hits a double five-knuckle shuffle, and then there's a double KO with Cena and Christian, so everybody's down. Jericho goes to the top. He gets crotched by Cena. Cena goes for the FU on Christian. Christian rakes his eyes and hits a reverse DDT. Tomko returns to clothesline Cena. Christian covers, but Cena kicks out. Cena then backdrops Christian to the floor. Jericho gets Cena in the walls of Jericho. Cena fights out. He catches Christian with the FU. He gets the pin and retains. Thought that was a really solid match.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing about it that wouldn't have been better if it had been a singles match. Nothing. The fans did not give a shit about anything Jericho was really doing. Because this match totally cold out of the fans didn't really love Cena, and the fans really loved Christian, so it was an awkward feel. Yeah. But
and they really would have preferred Christian got the main event push instead of Jericho against Cena, but instead Jericho gets sent to SmackDown, and I doesn't get to do a whole lot after this.
Almost nothing. Like, he's basically gone. I think he shows up in TNA at Slammiversary, so he's pretty much done.
Yeah. They do a promo for the Road Warriors DVD, and then the Hell in a Cell is lowered, and then they do the package for Triple H versus Batista.
A work of art.
Yeah, great promo here. And it's time for the main event. It's the match the world has come to see. We got a Hell in a Cell match for the World Heavyweight Championship as Batista defends against Triple H. The story here is that Triple H is undefeated in Hell in a Cell matches, and Batista has never been in one. Has to be advantage Triple H here.
It's so funny to remember a time where that was the case, where like Triple H could not be beaten in the cell. Impossible to beat him.
Who's he beaten? He beat Mick Foley.
He beat Nash. He beat
Jericho.
Michaels.
Yeah. He didn't win the 6-man Hell in a Cell at Armageddon, but he wasn't pinned either. He wasn't part of the decision there.
He's also undefeated in Elimination Chamber. Well, no, because of the Goldberg one. So he's 2-1.
No, he won the Goldberg one.
Okay, so yeah, he's undefeated in the Elimination.
He didn't win
Michaels.
did the first one. Michaels beat him in the first one. Yeah.
So he's 2-1 in Elimination Chambers.
Yeah, like he is the man in cage matches.
Yeah, when the big match comes, Triple H never fucking loses it. Which obviously he's about to lose it.
Triple H is out first, looking pretty disgusting.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. He looks gross.
Then Batista comes out.
Looking like $1 million.
Chop.
Yes.
Way bigger than Cena's. He looks amazing in his white trunks and white boots.
And I thought that he was going to have his music from before. I don't know when exactly like the Saliva music starts, but from the moment that it's like yeah. Like the crowd explodes. It's such a moment. And then he comes out with his white tights and his white boots and does the machine gun with a huge burst of pyro.
Boom, 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 machine guns.
Nobody else on this show has really even had pyro. He seems like such a big deal.
What a star.
Yeah. Like the
man.
You would never guess from seeing this that he's the guy not the guy they're going with. Like you would never in a million years believe that.
Yeah. Triple H quickly gets the advantage. He works over Batista's arm. He goes under the ring. He gets a chain and whips Batista with it.
Dude.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't know if this was a gimmick chain, but getting whipped with a chain doesn't sound fun.
No, it really doesn't.
Um, I love the subtle story that Triple H just like loaded under the ring with weapons.
Yes.
Like had all his custom weapons down there.
And Batista brought nothing because Batista doesn't know what he's doing.
He then strangles Batista with the chain. Batista gets out of that. He gets revenge by whipping Triple H with the chain. On the floor, Batista picks up Triple H like he's a small child and runs him into the cage and the post.
God, it's so cool.
Triple H blades, but then he hits a spine buster in the ring. Triple H goes under the ring again. This time he pulls out a steel chair wrapped in barbed wire.
This is cool shit.
Yeah.
I love this.
You're like, oh, this is getting real now. Like, Triple H isn't here to play.
I love the idea, too, that, like, Triple H... There's this through line through Triple H's career where he, like, takes little pieces from the people that he has, like, long feuds with. And, like, this is his, like, Mick Foley, like, I can go here because I've been there before.
Triple H hits a couple chair shots, but Batista comes back, gets the chair away from him, and nails him right in the face with it.
Blade job!
Batista does a javelin throw that sends Triple H into the cage wall. They go back in the ring. Triple H goes for a pedigree on the barbed wire chair, but Batista gets out with a backdrop. He then hits a running power slam onto the chair.
Ugh.
Batista wraps the chain around his fist, but Triple H cuts him off with a DDT onto the barbed wire chair. And then Triple H goes for the A-bomb. He goes outside, gets the sledgehammer. He winds up with it, but Triple H cuts him off. Triple H gets the hammer, and he does get Batista right in the face with it.
And, like, I genuinely thought at that moment that Batista was going to lose this match. And I was very pissed off.
I'm trying to remember if anybody's ever kicked out of a shot with the hammer. Maybe The Undertaker did at WrestleMania when they fought.
17? I'm not sure.
Wasn't there that spot where Taker got him up for the last ride and Triple H hit him in the head with the hammer?
Yeah, but I think there was like a ref bump. Like,
yeah,
there was
I think
a
it was
reason
a delayed
why.
cover. Yeah.
Like, it's not like here where he just actually kicks out.
No. Yeah. Batista kicks out at 2. Triple H winds up for another hammer shot. Batista cuts him off with a low blow. Batista gets the hammer. He comes in for the kill, but Triple H has loaded up his fist with the chain, and he hits Batista with a big right hand.
Oof.
Triple H wraps the fist again. He goes to the second rope. He comes off looking for a fist drop, but Batista lifts the hammer and hits him in the face as he's coming down.
I love that spot. He just basically just props it up.
Yeah, and then Triple H does like a flare fall. Like, he stands there for like 2 or 3 seconds, like looking dazed, and just falls flat on his face. And like spits up blood. I think he put a blood capsule in his mouth.
It's just such a nice detailed touch. Like, it works so well.
I will say I enjoyed this match. I think that probably should have been the finish. I think he should have just scooped him up and nailed the Batista bomb and pinned him there, but there's about another 5 minutes after that.
I mean, I agree with you, but the actual finish this match has is one of my favorite finishes in wrestling history, so I'm not sure how much I can agree with you.
It is very definitive. Batista slowly gets to his feet. He pummels Triple H with right hands and then throws him out to the floor. Batista hits him with the steps. He throws the steps into the ring. He sets the stairs up in the corner and just rams Triple H's face into them over and over. I should note, JR keeps talking about how never man will ever be the same again after this. The thing is, I don't feel like Batista was ever this big a star again, is the sad thing. Like, this was his peak, I feel like.
He goes to SmackDown.
And it's just never the same after that.
He's plagued with injuries, yeah, basically.
He gets stuck feuding with JBL for like 6 months.
and can't even beat him. It takes him forever to beat him. It sucks. Sucks.
Batista goes for the Batista bomb. Triple H catches him with a low blow. And then the pedigree. He's finally hit the pedigree. There's no way nobody kicks out of the Batista. Nobody kicks out of the pedigree. 1, 2, Batista kicks out.
Yes.
Triple H sets up for a pedigree on the steps. Batista lifts him out, hits a spine buster on the steps. Batista sets up for the Batista bomb.
Okay, hold on. I want to paint you a word picture here, because this is one of the best things ever.
Great.
This is just this one perfect moment. Triple H, we've seen this spot from him before.
Yeah.
You get Triple H for a power bomb, he's holding the sledgehammer, he hits you, you're fucked. It's the exact spot he does to Undertaker at WrestleMania 17.
I'm sure he did it to Nash, and I'm just not remembering it.
I say, and as Batista picks him up, he grabs a sledgehammer, and you're just waiting for it. You're like, no, and he lifts it, but he's so weak he can't quite. And then Batista power bombs him into the grave.
Yes. Yeah. He just didn't quite have it anymore.
And Batista's still fresh enough to give him a stanky Batista bomb.
Yeah. Mighty Casey has struck out.
It's just such a great communication. Like, in one move, this man is better than Triple H.
He has outthought him. He has outfought him.
I gotta say,
he is the man.
Like, no one has. This is the rub that Triple H has been waiting to give. Years he has put into building heat for this moment to give someone an unimaginable rub. The rub of the greatest heel of this era, right? And Batista gets all of it here.
3 straight definitive pay-per-view wins over Triple H.
Like, Benoit got 1, and he kind of got a little bit after that too.
Yeah,
nothing like this.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Triple H one-on-one once, like on pay-per-view. He won the 2 triple threat matches, and then he won the Iron Man. But, like, there's Eugene interference in the 2 that he won, the singles matches.
Whereas this is just Batista's better.
3 in a row. No question.
Again, it's unfathomable that this happens and you go with Cena and not Batista. Again, history bore this out that they made the right choice. But at this point, you don't know Cena's going to become an amazing company man and spokesman and
it feels like everything is so much better if they just leave Batista on Raw and Cena on SmackDown. Like, they're both in their natural habitats.
But Vince gets it into his head that Cena's the guy.
Cena's my guy, and Vince is not patient. When he gets his eye on somebody, it's right then. Like, he doesn't wait. It's a lesson he learned with Hulk Hogan. He got Hogan, and he put the belt on him, and he rode that horse all the way to glory.
Unfortunately, he learned the wrong lesson, because it hasn't worked since. Didn't work with Diesel. Didn't work with Sid. Didn't work with Roman. Like, it's not a good idea. The people he
waited with Austin.
Yeah, the people he's shown patience with. Austin, Rock, Triple H, Foley, Taker. Like, those are the ones that staying power. Hogan was an anomaly, but Vince doesn't see it.
So Batista gets the pin. He wins this epic. I think this is one of the most underrated Hell in a Cell matches. Absolutely loved this.
Yeah, for my money, this is the second best Hell in a Cell match after Triple H, Chris Jericho. But this match fucking rules. I know that maybe the most inadvertent thing that the Lawcast has created is us into gigantic Batista fans.
Yeah.
We were not when this podcast started. I would not have named myself a Batista fan. We have watched our way into becoming huge marks for Big Dave.
Love Dave Batista.
But we've just seen moment after moment where he kills it like this.
Yeah. Love him as a performer. Love him as a person, too.
Oh, my God. The greatest ally the world has ever created. Just amazing. I once ate pancakes in the booth that he always sits at his favorite IHOP. Like, he's a hero.
You just go in that IHOP, hoping one of these times he'll walk in his aviators and, like, I don't know. I just picture him, like, walking around in, like, tight jeans and no shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Don't
Maybe
you just
a
kind of
tank
imagine
top.
that?
Tank top, yeah. Maybe some kind of weird hat. He seems like he'd be a hat guy.
Maybe like some jangly earrings.
Yeah.
He's basically just giant beefy Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I think we've talked about this before, but there's a really cool, like, bonus segment on the
Yeah.
DVD release where Triple H is in the back, like, getting medical attention, and, like, Flair is consoling him. Flair's just like, look, he's an amazing champion. You know, he's at the top of his game. You gave him an incredible fight. You got nothing to be ashamed of. And Batista walks in, and, like, Triple H, like, manages to get to his feet, but he can barely stand. And they stare down, and Batista's just like, it's over. And Triple H is like, it is. And they shake hands, and Triple H goes, now that's evolution.
It's a beautiful moment. It would have made a perfect cap to this show
Yeah.
if you somehow could have added it to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do just because, like, it's clearly, like, 30 minutes later. Maybe you could have shown it on Raw the next night.
It's just, but it's a great encapsulation
Yeah.
of just
He's the man. He passed the torch to
he
him.
passed the fucking torch.
Yeah. This is the man now.
Nobody. John Cena has to wait until he faces The Rock to get this moment.
Yeah.
Batista gets it right here.
Like, Cena gets to beat Triple H, but it just doesn't feel the same when he does it.
Because Triple H has already given the heat.
Yeah, he's not the man anymore. Batista destroyed him.
And that's the thing. Like, you can't just. He'll be a big name forever. But heat is something that you build over time. It's momentum. It's your position on the card. It's not just a simple matter of how big a star you are.
I mean,
Like
Triple H had lost to guys, but he always got the belt back. He never got it back from Batista.
And fans never stopped wanting somebody to really beat him. Like, even Goldberg never really beat him. And, like, so, like, that sense from the fans that, like, you're waiting for that moment where you can finally have the relief of knowing that somebody beat that asshole. That's the heat. And once you've given it, you can't take it back. You got to start from scratch again. And Triple H never gets that heat back. I mean, with the authority he does, that's a whole separate fucking thing. But as a normal wrestler, this is it. He spent his whole career building to this moment that he puts over his chosen successor, Batista. And then they bury him.
Yeah.
Triple
So
H should have quit.
on the SmackDown after this, Batista is revealed to be SmackDown's final draft pick. So they've swapped champions. John Cena is now on Raw, and Batista is now on SmackDown. Batista gets put in a feud with JBL. It's not really good, and he just feels like he's never quite the same again after this.
Yeah, he gets hurt off and on in there. Yeah. He just, I don't know. He never
SmackDown
feels.
does become his show. It becomes his home, but he never reaches this peak again.
And in trying to, like, make him the man every time he come back from injury, they just, like, feed half the roster to him. So it really felt like nobody was getting over while he was on that show. Yeah. It was horrible.
And SmackDown's so thin that if he's not the champion, he just has to endlessly get pay-per-view title shots and lose. Like,
yeah.
At one point, I swear he lost like 10 straight pay-per-view title matches.
How are you supposed to take him seriously as the man when literally he's just a constant loser?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, John Cena can't lose a match to save his fucking life.
John Cena beats absolutely everybody.
John Cena wins. Disaster.
So that is a wrap. on Vengeance 2005. That was a pretty epic pay-per-view.
When you first suggested it and I was looking at the card, I was like, man, this is pretty good. All right. But as I watched it, every single match on this card over-delivered to an absurd extent. Almost like a SummerSlam '02 extent of like, it's a pretty good card on paper, but when you watch it, it's so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Loved it. Strongly recommend it to anybody who's looking for something to watch this weekend. This is a great one to go relive. This was, like we said with WrestleMania, just such a moment of hope for WWE. It feels like things are going to such a good place, and I think things are still good at SummerSlam, but the fall really feels like it's like the time of their discontent. I mean, I think the other thing you can't get around is Eddie Guerrero's death was really traumatic for this company and really hung over it for years. I mean,
Well, yeah, that was the big Batista feud we were going to get is Eddie versus Batista.
And then Benoit was an even bigger tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just, I don't know. I'm not sure wrestling's ever really been the same again.
It hasn't been as exciting, or, I don't know. It's such a bummer, man. We're just cruising around bummer country here.
Yeah. So next week is going to be interesting because there is going to be some bummers because it's a show where it feels like some careers got ruined. It's King of the Ring 2001. This is going to be interesting. The TV leading up to this was some of the most exciting I can ever remember as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, we're going to have some negative things to say about booking decisions, but make no mistake, I think this is the most excited I had ever been for a pay-per-view in my life at that point, and I'm not sure I've ever recaptured this level of hype since. The TV going in was unreal good. We're talking the famous two-man power trip versus Benoit and Jericho tag match. We're talking about the Benoit versus Austin cage match. We're talking about the invasion has just begun and the first shots are fired. It's crazy. It felt like the world was on fire, and then the world caught on fire.
Yeah, there's so many interesting things going on the way into this show, and it just ends in disaster.
Yeah, 6 months later, they burned through 5 years worth of storylines just trying to get past what they fucked up at this show.
Their roster is just broken between injuries and guys being buried.
Yeah, the decisions they make here literally kill their business until basically what we just covered today.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. All that and more next time on the Lawcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next time.